In the village of Kumba, a red moon rises, and a terrible secret claws its way from the earth. A woman's pride buried her sister alive, and now the soil remembers. Shadows walk, whispers echo, and the ancestors demand justice. No laughter remains, no child dares, and the earth trembles with the truth she tried to hide. What happens when envy and arrogance awaken a spirit long buried? The tale of Zara and Amma is not just a story, it is a warning that the ground beneath us never forgets. The red earth of Kumba glowed under the morning sun, breathing warmth and life into the small African village that sat between tall forests and whispering winds. The scent of rain still lingered in the air, mixing with the fragrance of roasted maize and wet soil. Children ran barefoot, their laughter ringing through the narrow paths as women pounded yam and sang songs of old heroes. Drums echoed faintly from the distance, beating in rhythm with the heart of Kumba itself, a place of harmony, respect, and unspoken traditions. But behind that beauty, beneath the laughter, something else breathed, a quiet pride, a judging silence, and a shadow that waited for the day it would be seen. Among the people of Kumba lived a young woman named Zara. She was beauty itself, her skin smooth as cocoa, her eyes sharp as the edge of a blade, and her smile bright enough to make the sun jealous. Her golden bangles clinked with every step, catching the light and reflecting it like fire. When she walked through the market, people stopped speaking, men forgot their words, and women lowered their eyes. But behind every admiring look came whispers. "She shines too much," someone would murmur. "Too bright for her own good," another would reply. And they were right, because beauty can be both gift and curse, and Zara's heart carried thorns sharper than anyone knew. She lived alone at the edge of the village, in a clay house that had once belonged to her late parents. The house stood strangely apart, half bathed in sunlight, half swallowed by the forest's shadow. The villagers said the house was too quiet. Even when the wind blew hard enough to make other huts groan, Zara's walls stood still. Children dared each other to touch its red walls, but the moment they reached out, fear would seize them, and they would run away, squealing with laughter and terror. During the day, the house seemed harmless, clean, polished, proud. But at night, its silence grew heavy, like something alive was breathing just beneath the clay. Zara herself was no kinder than her home. When women carried heavy pots of water on their heads, she smirked from her doorstep. "Look at you, mudsoles," she would say with a cruel laugh. "You walk barefoot in dirt and call it pride." She never helped anyone, never shared food or greetings. Every morning, she scrubbed her doorstep clean, as if afraid that even the air of the poor might stain her. Her words cut deeper than knives, and slowly, the villagers began to avoid her. Even the elders, wise and patient as they were, sighed when she passed by. "Pride," they said, "has no home among the humble." As the moon rose above Kumba, whispers began to creep through the night air. Some said they saw a shadow move behind Zara's window when the lamps had long gone out. Others swore they heard strange scratching sounds coming from her floor, like claws on stone. An old widow, who lived near the path to Zara's house, claimed she woke one dawn to find muddy handprints smeared across her door, small, wet, and human. Fear settled quietly in the village like fog over still water. People spoke in low voices, avoiding her home as though it carried a sickness that no healer could cure. One afternoon, the elders gathered beneath the great baobab tree. The air was thick with worry. Elder Nyambi, the oldest among them, leaned heavily on his wooden staff. His beard was white like moonlight, his voice cracked like dry earth. "A woman who forgets humility," he said slowly, "invites the spirits of darkness to teach her." The other elders nodded in silence. They decided to visit Zara the next day, not in anger, but in wisdom, to warn her before pride turned to madness. The following morning, the elders approached her clay house. Zara was sitting on her stool, polishing her golden bangles, humming a tune only she knew. When she saw them, she smirked. "The wise men of Kumba," she said mockingly, "come to tell me another story about dirt and spirits?" Elder Nyambi spoke softly, "Child, pride is a flame that burns its own bearer." Zara threw her head back and laughed, loud, cruel, and sharp. "Your stories are dirt," she said coldly. "And I am too clean to listen." The villagers watching nearby gasped. Even the wind seemed to stop. She slammed her door shut, and the jingle of her bangles sounded like mocking laughter that refused to fade. Days passed, and the village returned to uneasy silence. But one hot afternoon, a small boy named Keto ran past Zara's house, chasing his broken drumstick. The sound of his bare feet slapped against the red soil until he suddenly froze. His eyes widened. Just ahead, near Zara's doorway, something moved. It was human-shaped, but wrong, its skin slick and dark, its body crawling low like a beast. The creature slipped through the crack beneath her door and disappeared inside. Keto's drumstick fell from his hand. He screamed and ran, his small voice breaking the quiet afternoon into chaos. The villagers came running. The boy trembled as he spoke, tears cutting through the dust on his face. "It went into her house," he cried. Something slimy and dark." The people looked toward Zara's home, fear twisting their stomachs. Zara stepped out, her face cold but her hands slightly shaking. "You dream too much, little one," she said, forcing a smile. "Nothing walks into my house but the wind." Her voice trembled as she spoke. The women exchanged uneasy glances. One whispered, "Her eyes look tired, haunted." Another muttered, "Maybe the dead visit her at night." But Zara turned her back and walked inside, her laughter echoing like a lie she was desperate to believe. That evening, the sun set with a strange heaviness, casting long shadows that swallowed Kumba whole. The villagers gathered near the baobab tree once more. Elder Nyambi stood slowly, his old bones creaking with age. He looked toward Zara's silent home, then at the crowd, and finally spoke, his tone deep and measured. "The ground knows what walks above it," he said. "And the truth always finds the light." His staff struck the earth with a hollow thud that echoed across the village. Everyone turned toward Zara's house again, but the lamps inside had already gone dark. Inside her home, Zara sat in silence. The golden bangles on her wrists no longer shone. Her reflection in the clay pot beside her seemed distorted, almost smiling when she wasn't. The air felt heavy, the floor damp. Somewhere beneath her feet came a faint scratching sound. For the first time in her life, she felt afraid to look down. Outside, Elder Nyambi's words lingered in the air like smoke after fire, words that warned not just Zara, but every soul in Kumba. No beauty can hide a rotten heart forever. And though the village slept, something in the red earth had begun to stir, waiting for the night it would show its face. The whispers began softly, like wind brushing over dry grass, spreading from one hut to another until every ear in Kumba had heard the tale of the child who saw the unseen. At the water well, women bent over their clay pots, murmuring in hushed tones about Zara's house. Their bracelets jingled nervously as they exchanged fearful glances. He said it crawled, one whispered. Something shaped like a person. Children made songs about her, chanting her name in secret when the moon rose, daring each other to run near her compound. The story of what lived in Zara's house became a shadow that followed every conversation. Fear and curiosity began to dance together in every corner of Kumba, feeding each other until even laughter carried unease. But Zara felt no shame. If anything, the whispers only made her arrogance bloom brighter. She polished her golden bangles until they caught the sun like fire, wrapped herself in the finest Kent cloth from passing traders, and strutted through the market like a queen among peasants. Her footsteps were slow, deliberate, commanding attention. "Look at me," she would say, her smile sharp as glass. "The cleanest woman in Kumba. The rest of you are dust." Her laughter sliced through the murmurs of the crowd, forcing eyes down and hearts to tighten. Even the old men who once admired her beauty now looked away, uneasy under her pride. She called their humility weakness. But in truth, her pride had become her mask, a thin veil covering the fear that sometimes flickered in her eyes when she walked home at night. At the market, things began to change. The air turned colder when she passed. Old women spat on the ground, a silent curse against evil pride. "Pride brings flies," one muttered under her breath. The men selling cassava avoided her gaze, pretending to fix their baskets. Even her shadow seemed unwelcome, swallowed quickly by the ground as if the earth itself rejected her. But Zara lifted her chin higher, convinced their hatred was jealousy. "They wish they could be me," she whispered to herself. "They wish they shone like me." Yet when she looked into a child's eyes and saw only fear, something inside her twisted, though she quickly smothered the feeling. Then came the first night of the scratching. It started faintly, like a rat beneath the clay floor. Zara sat up in bed, listening to the sound grow louder, more deliberate, scrape, scrape, scrape. She grabbed her lamp, but the moment she lit it, silence fell again. The next morning, before the sun rose, children playing near her house stopped suddenly. Wet footprints, bare, muddy, and small, led from her doorway toward the woods. Their screams echoed through the village, and by noon, everyone knew. "It walks again," they said. The thing beneath her floor. Fear became Kumba's new guest, visiting every hut but staying at Zara's. That night, even the wind avoided her compound. Elder Nyambi could bear it no longer. With 3 brave men beside him, he rose before dawn, the air cold and heavy like morning smoke. They walked slowly to Zara's home, staffs carved with ancestral symbols clutched in their hands. When they knocked, Zara opened the door halfway. Her eyes were red, her hair untied, her beauty dimmed by sleepless nights. "We come with blessing," Nyambi said softly. "Let us cleanse your home of restless spirits." For a moment, her lips trembled. Then she laughed bitterly. "Cleanse," she sneered. "My house is cleaner than your soul's." And she slammed the door shut. The thud echoed through the still morning, and the men walked away with heavy hearts, knowing that something darker than pride lived within those walls. By the next day, a strange omen appeared. Swarms of black flies circled her compound, though no filth lay nearby. They buzzed endlessly, crawling over her walls and windows. Mothers clutched their children's hands tighter when they passed. "The ancestors are angry," they whispered. "A restless spirit has found her home." Zara, however, pretended not to see. But when one fly landed on her face and refused to move no matter how she brushed it, her breath caught. That night, she burned incense and perfume, choking the air with sweetness that failed to hide the smell of something deeper, something rotten. One dusty afternoon, as the sun glared mercilessly, a stranger appeared on the road. She was tall, draped in faded green cloth that fluttered like dying leaves. Her walking stick was carved with bones and shells that rattled softly. It was Mama Nia, an old healer whispered to wander between villages, carrying the wisdom of the forgotten. The villagers gathered, staring as she spoke. "Something buried under pride now breathes in darkness," she said, her voice low yet heavy with power. "If left untouched, it will crawl until it finds the truth." The crowd shivered, convinced the ancestors themselves had sent her. That evening, Mama Nia made her way to Zara's house. The moment she stepped inside, her wrinkled face twisted. "This place smells of secrets," she murmured. The air was thick, sweet with perfume yet hiding decay. Zara stood by her mirror, glaring. "Leave before I curse you," she said coldly. "No one curses what is already dying," Mama Nia replied gently. She turned to go but paused at the door. "When the moon turns red," she whispered, "your shame will walk." Zara's eyes flashed with anger. "Old woman, your words are dirt," she spat. But as the door closed, a chill ran through her. The next day, Zara mocked Mama Nia in the village square. She stood tall, laughing loudly. "Did you see the witch who came crawling to my door?" she shouted. "Her rags smell of the forest. Maybe she sleeps with spirits and calls it wisdom." The villagers laughed nervously, unsure whether to join her or stay silent. Elder Nyambi watched from afar, his face filled with sorrow. Clouds gathered that night, thunder rumbling faintly in the distance as if the heavens were warning her. But Zara sat by her mirror, smiling, refusing to listen. As night deepened, her smile faltered. She looked into the mirror, expecting to see her proud reflection. But the face staring back wasn't hers alone. Behind her stood another image, mud-covered, hollow-eyed, grinning with broken teeth. Zara gasped and spun around. Nothing. She looked again. The face remained, staring at her through the glass. With a scream, she struck the mirror, shattering it. But even in the shards scattered on the floor, her reflection blinked back at her, mocking, breathing. Days passed. Every night, She cooked lavish meals, rice, stew, roasted meat, but by morning, everything turned black, covered in writhing maggots. The air inside her home stank of death and shame. She scrubbed her floor until her hands bled, but muddy footprints always returned. Her laughter faded, her bangles grew dull. She sat for hours staring at her walls, listening to whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. Her eyes became hollow, as though her soul were shrinking. Then, one midnight, she woke to faint murmurs beneath her bed. Her heart pounded. She pressed her ear to the clay floor and froze. There was breathing, slow, wet, human breathing. A voice hissed her name softly, Zara. She stumbled back, trembling. For the first time in her life, she prayed. "Spirits, forgive me," she whispered. "I did not know." But the voices only grew louder, laughing now, a laugh that sounded eerily like her own. One windy night, a woman passing by Zara's compound saw the door swing open. The lamp inside flickered weakly. From under the bed, something long and pale moved, an arm, perhaps, or something pretending to be one. The woman dropped her basket, screaming as she ran toward the village. By dawn, the news had spread. "There is something crawling in Zara's house," people whispered, clutching their children close. Panic consumed Kumba. No one dared to walk her road after sunset. Dogs barked endlessly but refused to go near her gate. Even the trees around her home seemed to bend away. Elder Nyambi gathered the people beneath the baobab tree once again. "Whatever truth she hides," he said gravely, "will soon walk among us." His words sent chills through every spine. That night, silence swallowed the village. No laughter came from Zara's house. No drumbeats. Only the faint buzz of flies and the distant growl of thunder. She sat alone in darkness, her once beautiful hands trembling. The air around her pulsed with dread, as though the earth beneath her remembered something she had long tried to forget. The wind whispered her name again, softer this time, almost kindly. But she didn't answer. Somewhere deep under the clay, something sighed, tired, hungry, and ready to wake. The night fell heavy over Kumba village, and an eerie silence blanketed the streets as the red moon rose, bathing the thatched roofs in a blood-colored light. The villagers drew their children indoors, whispering that the ancestors were restless, their voices trembling as if the very air carried warning. Drums that had beaten through festivals now lay still, and even the wind moved cautiously, shivering through the red dust. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the mud paths, and every corner seemed to hold a secret waiting to be revealed. Fear, thick and palpable, curled around each hut, and the villagers could feel it pressing against their chests, a warning that this night would not be like any other. Storm clouds rolled in swiftly, dark and angry, swallowing the stars. Lightning tore across the savanna, illuminating the twisted branches of the old baobab near Zara's house, while thunder shook the ground beneath it. Elder Nyambi muttered under his breath, ancient warnings, his voice nearly lost in the rumble of the sky. "No one must step outside tonight," he warned, his cracked voice carrying weight heavier than any chain. The villagers huddled together, clutching charms and amulets, their hearts hammering against the terror that coiled in their bellies. Suddenly, a scream shattered the night, sharp and raw, echoing from Zara's hut. Villagers froze, eyes wide, some clutching their children while others turned pale with dread. "It's her again," someone wailed, but no one dared approach. Even the dogs barked madly, howls mingling with the wind, their cries like a chorus of fear rising to the blood-red sky. The scream continued, endless and piercing, seeping into the very soil, warning that the balance of life and death had been disturbed. A flash of lightning revealed the door of Zara's house swinging open for the first time in months. From the doorway, a foul, dark air escaped, thick and heavy as rotting earth. The villagers gasped, holding their breaths as a shape began to crawl out, human in form but twisted, dragging limbs through mud and shadow. Its movement was deliberate, crawling across the threshold as if the earth itself guided it forward. The scent of decay followed it, clinging to the night like a living thing. Under the red glow, the villagers peered from their windows, unable to look away. The figure's skin was pale, torn, glistening with black slime that smeared across the mud beneath it. Its eyes were hollow, yet the face bore a faint, horrifying resemblance to Zara herself, a beauty once radiant, now twisted into monstrous form. Whispers ran through the village like fire, but no one dared approach, the fear of ancestral wrath freezing their steps. The storm stilled for a brief, unnatural moment as the villagers gathered outside, clutching charms and amulets. Mama Nia stepped forward, her presence steady, voice deep and commanding. Elder Nyambi raised his staff, murmuring words older than memory, the vibrations reaching deep into the soil. Zara emerged from her doorway, fine robes now soaked with filth, her hair tangled with mud. Her lips trembled, eyes wide with terror as she whispered, "It's following me," before collapsing to her knees, unable to stand against the horror she had summoned. Mama Nia circled the crawling figure, chanting in a low, rhythmic tone that seemed to pull the storm closer, wind and lightning bending around her words. "This is not a demon," she declared. "This is truth, called forth by the red moon." The villagers clutched each other, their hearts racing as realization dawned with bone-deep cold. Then Mama Nia spoke, words slicing through the storm like a spear. "You buried your sister beneath your floor, Zara. The one you envied, the one you called dirty." Gasps erupted. The earth trembled beneath their feet as if remembering the crime committed long ago. Mud bubbled and shifted where the creature crawled, revealing the truth in grotesque motion. It was Alma, Zara's sister, returned from the grave for justice long denied. The memory struck like lightning. Years before, Alma, radiant and kind, had been admired by all. Zara, consumed with jealousy, believed beauty was power, worth, and authority. One night, with hands shaking yet heart burning, she brewed a cup of tea, sweet-smelling and warm. Alma drank it with trust, smiling, and moments later, life left her. Zara buried her beneath the house, and the guilt festered silently, growing roots in the earth she walked upon daily, unseen yet living, until this night, the night of the red moon. Now, in the present, Alma's spirit crawled from the soil, decayed and pale, each movement slow, deliberate, painful, as if the ancestors themselves nudged her toward the surface. Every step brought her closer to the doorway where Zara knelt, trembling, praying. "You called me dirty," Alma's voice echoed, hollow yet penetrating, like wind through bones. Zara shrank back, shaking violently, tears streaming down her face. "Forgive me," she cried, but the spirit pressed on, relentless, driven by justice. When Alma's cold, slimy hand touched Zara's cheek, the ground shuddered. The flawless skin Zara had so long cherished began to melt and rot, like candle wax dripping under a merciless flame. Villagers screamed, covering their eyes, yet unable to look away. The beauty that had once dazzled all now revealed the ugliness within, a mirror of envy and cruelty given form. Lightning struck, and the roof of Zara's house collapsed in a deafening crash. Dust, clay, and broken timber rained down as the wail of the spirit merged with thunder, a chorus of vengeance and release. In a final burst of wind, both Zara and Alma vanished into the earth, leaving only silence in their place. Rain began to fall softly, cleansing the red soil, washing away the traces of horror. The villagers approached cautiously, breathing in the scent of wet earth and sorrow. The red moon faded behind gathering clouds, leaving the sky gray and heavy with memory. Mama Nia bent over the wreckage and discovered a cracked mirror, its surface marked by 2 handprints, one clean, one covered in mud. "The ground remembers truth," she whispered. Elder Nyambi nodded gravely, adding, "Beauty without goodness is a curse." Days later, children avoided the ruins, and mothers warned them to respect one another, to avoid hiding envy or burying shame in silence. The story of Zara and Alma became a whispered lesson across Kumba village, a tale of pride, envy, and the dirt that lives beneath beauty, reminding all that the earth never forgets, and justice, no matter how long delayed, always finds a way. As dawn broke, the red moon faded into pale light, leaving Kumba village wrapped in a silence deeper than any the villagers had known. No drums echoed, no laughter rang across the mud paths, only the whisper of wind moving softly through the ruins of Zara's home. The terror of the night still lingered in every heart, heavy and lingering, as if the ancestors themselves had walked among them, leaving behind their weighty presence. Villagers moved carefully, their eyes darting toward the pit of blackened soil where Zara's house once stood. The earth seemed alive, breathing softly, as though it had swallowed a story it would never forget. No one met its gaze, even the birds avoided landing there, leaving the air thick with reverence and unspoken fear. Children were forbidden to play near the ruins, and their mothers whispered warnings when they approached. "That is where pride met its grave," they said, their voices low, careful. Over time, the place became a sacred lesson rather than a site of fear. Even as the sun rose and fell, its shadowed soil held memory, reminding the villagers that truth, once buried, always rises, no matter how long it takes. Under the old baobab tree, Mama Nia sat with Elder Nyambi, their faces lined with the weight of what had passed. "Evil does not hide in dirt," she said softly, her voice carrying like a prayer through the morning air. "It hides in denial." Nyambi nodded, his eyes heavy with the wisdom of many storms. "And denial grows," he answered quietly, "until it buries us whole." Their words drifted across the village like a blessing to the unseen spirits, a reminder that the heart and the land are intertwined. With time, the villagers began to rebuild their lives. Fields were tilled again, nets were cast into rivers, and songs returned to the wind. But the laughter was quieter, softer, touched by the knowledge of what had come before. Mothers taught humility to their daughters, warning them that beauty without truth is fragile, and fathers reminded their sons that strength without honesty is hollow. The story of Zara and Amma became a quiet thread woven into every family's daily life, spoken in whispers during chores and over evening fires, a living reminder of pride, envy, and the consequences of burying shame. On nights of the full moon, villagers claimed to see two shadows near the ruins, one upright, graceful, and steady, the other crawling, slow, deliberate, yet always present. No one spoke aloud, yet everyone knew that these were not curses but lessons walking the earth, a reminder that guilt and forgiveness are intertwined, that even in death, the truth demands recognition. Libations of palm wine were poured at the blackened soil, whispered blessings offered for clean hearts and truthful souls, honoring the spirits who had spoken from beneath the earth. Years passed, but the story never died. Around evening fires, storytellers began their tales with a warning: no matter how clean the face looks, the truth beneath will always crawl out. These words traveled beyond Kumba, carried through the markets, the riversides, and the farmlands, becoming a proverb mothers murmured while washing clothes and elders recited during disputes. One evening, many seasons later, a young girl wandered near the ruins. She knelt to touch a wildflower sprouting from the black soil, its petals delicate and pure against the shadowed ground. As her hand hovered, a soft whisper rose through the night, gentle, kind, and warning: "Stay pure, little one." The girl froze, her heart racing, then smiled and left the flower untouched, sensing that it belonged to another world. That night, as the moon returned, the ruins glowed faintly under its light. The villagers watched from a distance, no fear in their hearts, only reverence. The light flickered slowly, like a heartbeat, as if the two souls beneath were finally at rest, their presence still honoring the lessons learned. From that day forward, Kumba lived differently. Pride was no longer worn as beauty, and truth was spoken before envy could take root. Every child grew up hearing the story, not to shame Zara, but to remember Amma's voice, the warning she left, and the justice that the earth itself had delivered. By firelight, elders retold the story again and again, emphasizing how envy can rot the soul, how truth will always rise, and how the earth remembers every act. Children listened wide-eyed, repeating the proverb like a sacred chant, internalizing the lessons that would guide them through life. The story of Zara and Amma became more than a caution, it became the soul of Kumba, shaping the morals and the hearts of its people. As the final words faded into the night, the view returned to the ruins under the soft glow of the moonlight. Rooftops glimmered in the distance, the baobab swayed gently, and the faint outline of two figures appeared in the mist, walking side by side into the horizon. Their presence was calm, restorative, and full of finality. A voice, deep and knowing, echoed across the village: "Clean hands mean nothing if the heart is stained. The earth always remembers." And with that, the village of Kumba embraced its lessons, carrying forward the memory of pride, envy, justice, and the enduring power of truth.